Okay. It looks like we are live. How is everyone doing today? Thank you so much for joining me. Give it a second here for people to start filing in. Looks like everything is running. Awesome. Okay. Well, hello and welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jason Levine, Principal Worldwide Evangelist for Adobe Creative Cloud. And in today's special live stream, we're going to be talking about what's new for Creative Cloud video and audio tools just released yesterday. So if you've been working, if you've been in the studio doing some post-production, doing any kind of production, and you didn't realize that you might have a notification in your Creative Cloud desktop, we just released updates to Premiere Pro, After Effects, Audition, Character Animator, Adobe Media Encoder, Prelude, as well as some other updates, even for like Lightroom and Photoshop. But for our video family, we're going to focus on some of the cool new features and ads that are being brought to you in this latest release. Thank you so much again for joining us on the Creative Cloud Facebook page, on Twitter, Periscope, and on YouTube as well. Of course, you'll be able to watch the replays of this immediately after we stop. And I'm going to go through this not so rapidly, but we've got a lot of things to cover, so I'm not going to do my usual shout outs and everything else. I will just say thank you all as I'm looking through the chat here. Lots of very international audience here. Very nice to see you all. Also, it looks like we've got my buddy Jason Ertel from Adobe in the chat, and as well as some additional Adobe peeps here to answer your questions. So, and I'll take a couple questions towards the end. Probably going to go about an hour today, showcasing some of this stuff to you. All right, awesome. So how about we go ahead and get started? So let me go ahead and switch over my screen. And as we often do, we're going to start in Premiere. Now, one of the main themes of this release is it's really about making you more efficient. You're going to find across all the updates in these applications a lot of efficiency improvements. And that includes things like performance and stability as well, but really just making you more efficient when you're working inside the app. And a theme that I will mention again, and we've revisited now for the last year and a half, 2 years or so across all of the Creative Cloud apps, is really improving that user experience. So the first feature that we're going to talk about here, something called freeform, really speaks directly to that. It's going to make you more efficient as an editor, as a storyteller, but also it's just really going to improve and really give you a more delightful experience of really crafting your story right from your raw media before it even gets into the timeline. So let's kind of take a look at sort of how we're used to working with footage and organizing our content today. So, and incidentally, all the footage that you'll be seeing in these demos today, with the exception of some of the After Effects ones, comes from a short film called Century, which was directed and chopped, his words, by a fellow friend and Adobe colleague, Mike Baldwin. So we thank Mike so much for lending us his content. So let's go ahead and just take a look at one of the bins that I have here with some footage. So here is kind of the traditional bin, right, in our list view. And obviously you've got all the various fields of metadata that you can sort by, that you can organize by. As I always like to point out, people are always asking, well, how do we showcase different types of metadata? Well, you've got this metadata display button here where, of course, these are all of the Premiere project metadata, and there's, 50, 100 things that you can set here. But then there's all the additional XMP metadata that you can have, and that's great. But again, it's kind of text and numbers, and, in terms of organizing your story, not so much. This is good if you just kind of want to know, various attributes of the content, excluding what's in the content itself, all right? But we all use the list view. That's kind of the default view in Premiere. Now, we've also got the icon view, and what amazes me as I often live stream in icon view is that a lot of people aren't aware of the fact that you can, in fact, do sort of a rough storyboard in here. You can actually take clips and you can click and drag them around and organize them in a very linear way, but effectively, building out your story. Now, of course, there's no sorting here. There's no grouping. So it's somewhat limited, but it's nice. You have hover scrubbing. So again, as we hover over the clips, right, we can kind of get a very quick preview of what's happening. You can set in and out points. If you look very closely here, you can see here's our playhead. You can JKL through these clips inside of the icon view as well. But again, it's linear. There's no sorting. There's no real grouping. Kind of hard to assemble an entire story in a row and column grid style. Okay, not that you can't, but not quite so elegant. So enter freeform view. And those of you who are familiar working in Avid or coming from Avid will probably appreciate this very much. So freeform, true to its name, allows you to customize your clips visually based on scene, theme, or virtually any metadata from a drop-down list, which I'll show you. And you can really just begin to organize things freely in what I would actually like to call an artboard style. And I'll come back to that in a moment. So here you can see we've got a series of clips that we've kind of grouped together here. Some windmills, again, same hover scrubbing, set your in and out points. If I right click on a clip here, I have the ability to adjust the clip size. Now I think that's getting a little lost at the bottom of the screen here. There, let's see if you can kind of see it. Clip size. There we go. So I'm going to make that one clip extra large. You can see I can do that. Or I can take a series of clips and resize them. All right, let's put that back to its large size here. You can take clips and drag them over top of one another and stack them together in any way you see fit. Really nice and easy. If you right-click or control-click into the gray space where there are no clips, this now gives you some of the freeform bin options where you have the ability to align everything back to a grid, or you can in fact reset everything with your visual icons to the grid using one of these metadata fields. So again, if you want to have everything organized, if you've put all this metadata in there, good on you. You've got lots of different ways that you can organize this. If we wanted to organize everything by name, for instance, boom, we can do something just like that. Okay. Now, what you may have also noticed, though, and this is really one of the cooler options with this feature, is that you have the ability here to save layouts. Yes, now this is on a per bin basis. So these layouts are saved within the bin itself. They're not shared between bins. But what's really cool about this is, again, if you think about organizing things by scene, it gives you a lot of flexibility. And similarly, you also have the ability to restore them at any point in time. So that original layout that we had in here is called Hills Ride. I can go ahead and restore that, and it takes me back to the way that it was. So super cool, super easy. I wanted to show you just a couple of different options and ways that Mike, when he was actually cutting this together, sort of organized things. And I mentioned artboard before because one of the cool things is that you can take your clips and you can drag them off screen, just like with artboards. So you can move things way off the canvas here just for easier, better organization. And this is where having that zoom control really becomes necessary because now we can kind of stack things and place them wherever we want, really in whatever way we see fit. Again, if we wanted to do like a resize on all of these, we can resize all of the clips to extra large, something like this. Okay, again, we can see inside of each of these clips, hover scrub, JKL, set our in and out points, really flexible, really, really efficient. Here's another option here. This one, I think he went with a very sort of, this is a very symmetrical kind of look to these. Again, we can resize all of our thumbnails. I can take all of the clips. I can move them around like this. Again, very symmetrical, very nice, very easy here. Go into something like this. Now, this one I like in particular. One, the shots are just beautiful. And this is a scene where his son is learning he's teaching him how to ride a bicycle here. So as we're sort of organizing and building our story, what if we wanted to, of course, naturally build a sequence from this as we're organizing and moving things around? Well, you can do that by, again, organizing as you see here. Let's go ahead and select all of these, right-click, control-click, and choose New Sequence from Clip, our standard function there. Now, again, this is a floating panel right here. And now you can see we've got that timeline created for us just like that, okay? Very, very easily. Oh, and it's worth pointing out that you also have snapping options. So as you're moving your clips around and resizing and whatnot, if you hold down the Option key, you'll see that it will snap to the edges so that you can align things. Again, if you're like me, very OCD, like things kind of symmetrical. I like the overlap too, don't get me wrong. But I sometimes just like it when things are beautifully aligned and snap together just like that. You can do that holding down the Option key and dragging your clips around. So this is just such a welcomed new addition. Again, if you're coming from Avid, this probably looks and feels familiar. Love this new view. Save your layouts. We can restore your layouts at any point in time. You can always reset back to the grid or align everything to the grid. Really nice, really easy way to work, and we're very excited. Hopefully, maybe you've already discovered it. Again, that's why we do these live streams, so that you can discover these new features. So really cool stuff. Now, along the lines of alignment, right? Nice little segue here. I want to talk to you about some new changes that we've added in terms of, well, I guess you can use it for graphics, but it can be used for a number of things. And that is that we now have guides inside of Premiere Pro. Yes, guides. Customizable graphics guides and rulers, much like Photoshop and After Effects. Many of you are saying, about time here. What's really cool about these guides, and slightly different, is that these are also shareable across your organization. So particularly if you're in an enterprise, if you're in a broadcast environment, and you always have a specific positioning for all of your content, whether it's logo bugs, whether it's subtitles, whether it's actual titles on screen, you can now very easily create and customize those guides and share them very easily. It doesn't even involve libraries. .guide files, real easy, real small, awesome. So let's take a look. So here, this is the beginning of the title sequence, again, which was authored in our Essential Graphics panel. Now, we've done a lot of updates to Essential Graphics in the last 18 months or so. Not the least of which, of course, was adding the Adobe Stock button here. Want to point out that as of today, we now have over 10 million video offerings in Adobe Stock's catalog. So that's 10 million 4K, Ultra HD, HD, and motion graphics templates growing every day. And that's thanks largely in part to all of you for being contributors to Adobe Stock. So we thank you. It's amazing. Again, a great way to get more motion graphics templates. But when we kind of redesigned the EGP, a lot of people are saying, well, this is really cool and I love this. But it's kind of hard for me to really, well, I don't have any real visual guides for placing stuff on the canvas, right? When we added Essential Graphics and we added the text tool that allows you to type right on screen, yes, true. And yes, we do have some align and transform controls. Again, you've seen these in After Effects, very familiar. But still, you're looking kind of at a blank canvas here. I need more control. I need guides. I need rulers. Well, very happy to announce that we've got them now. So with the program monitor in focus, if we go up to the view menu here, first of all, let's go ahead and turn on our rulers. You can see them up at the top here, just like that. Looks just like Photoshop. And then show guides, okay? Now, how do we make guides? Well, if you just want to drag a few guides out, it is just that. It is as simple as taking something, say, from the horizontal plane up here and dragging one down like that. And if we want to do a vertical one, drag it in from the side like that. And maybe right here is actually where we want that text to begin, right in the corner here, all right? So again, I can take this now and I can freely move this about. Super cool, super easy. What if you want to customize the look of your guides? Let's clear those for a second. If we go into Add Guide, here is where you can change the color, first and foremost, the units displayed in your ruler as well. I happen to like this kind of pinkish, hot pink magenta. Maybe we'll make it a little bit darker, something like that. Okay, and again, you can drag these out till your heart's content very easily. Now, as I mentioned, it's one thing to have guides to allow you to align things more efficiently and more easily, but also something that I've become very accustomed to in Photoshop, very accustomed to in Illustrator, very accustomed to in even like XD, is having sort of snapping lines, where I can see exact center or snapping to the guides. So naturally, of course, you can do that as well. So as you're holding your text, if you hold down the Command key, which is, Command is Option Alt, Command is Control on Windows. Yeah, I always forget. Now the stream, I think this is in that color red that wigs the stream out. So I don't know if you're going to see these guides perfectly, but you notice that as I approach the center, it is now snapping and locking me to center, horizontal, and vertical. Or it'll also show me that I am snapped precisely to the edge of those guides, just like that. So this is a perfect way to truly align all of your content on screen really efficiently, really easily. But there's even more to it. It gets super cool because, again, I told you that these are customizable and shareable. So let's clear these for a second and go up into the guide templates. So let's say from this widescreen cut, he's going to do a 4:3 center cut, all right? Here we've got some preset guides, and right away I can see that, all right, well, based on what the move we just made, this text is going to fall out of range here. Now it's kind of sliding on screen anyway, so we could probably get away with it, but maybe he doesn't want that, right? So again, 4:3 guides, really cool, really easy. What about something like here? Here, we can try this one. Sentry. So this is actually his specific guide for the text animation. And you can see I was a bit off here. So again, I can take the text, hold down Command, snap it right into position there, and we're good to go. All right. Now taking that a step further, talking about sort of having access or using captions, right? So this is something with, and logo bugs and lower thirds in general. Like I must tell you, this is something I've talked about it on stream. I stress a lot about positioning of these things. Now, again, you still have access to the traditional safe margins, right? So you always have that if you're talking about sort of lower thirds or designing captions like they did here. You can, of course, devise your own safe margins that just has a little more detail. All right, so here's the one that I created here. All right. But what if we have a specific one in our organization where we want captions to live? Well, we've got that, and someone sent me their caption guide. So as the editor now, again, Program Monitor and Focus, I can go up to the View menu, Guide Templates, Manage Guides. Let's go ahead and import. Guides for import. And here are my captions guides, all right, that someone created for us. Go ahead and click Open on this. It adds it to the list. Okay, and now let's go ahead and enable that. And right away we can see that our captions are exactly where we want them to be. All right. So I mean, there's not there's not much else that needs to be said about this, except that, as mentioned, one, they're shareable, so save guides as template. And again, the really nice thing here is you give it a name and it creates a file that you can hand off very easily, place it on disk. You know, I know some people, I personally love working with libraries. These currently don't exist in libraries. They're just standalone little .guide files. Lovely, easy, simple to move around, okay? Awesome. But aside from that, it's just really easy and efficient to, again, continue to drag out more and more guides as you're working. You know, if you want to resave and continue to work with these things, you can do that and recreate a new version of this caption guide or whatever it is, multicolored in this case, save that out, share it. Super cool. Now, while I've got you here in Essential Graphics, just a small thing, but something that I think is actually very cool, is that we've also made some additional adjustments, alterations to the appearance of text inside the Essential Graphics panel. So let me go ahead and I'm just going to turn off the guides because they're kind of getting in the way now. And I'm also going to zoom this up. Let's see if we do 100%. Yeah, just so that the text is a little bit bigger here. Okay. So maybe we'll actually choose this one. All right. So down in the appearance section of your text, you will now notice that not only do you have the ability, of course, as you've always had, to add strokes, and right away you're going to start to see the limitations of my design skill. Talked about it a lot on the stream here. Don't be impressed. All right. So here, nice thick stroke. I'm so good with text. I'm not good with text at all. I stress over it. You can now add multiple strokes. So this is used a lot in lots of different productions. Lots of people love to have that super stroke kind of look. Let's go in here. Let's go ahead and choose something. And I don't want to do red because that'll kind of wig out the stream. Let's do blue, something like this. Okay, readjust the stroke size like that. Okay, so multiple strokes. We can keep adding them, keep going with them. You'll also notice that there's a little wrench menu here where you have some stroke style properties that you can adjust, including 3 different options for line join, 3 different options for line cap. Really nice. If this is the kind of thing that you do, I know internationally a lot of times you see in commercials multi-stroked text. Really awesome to have this here and so easy and efficient to lay it down. Now the other really cool thing that they've done, and something that I actually requested long ago, is we have now added a standalone background box. So something that I will often do when I'm creating motion graphics templates is have just a box around the text. Many of us, I'm sure, do this. Let's go ahead and give this a color here, just so that you can see it a little better. All right, like that. Under background, you'll see that you have opacity options here. And then, of course, you have size options. Now, while that is nothing special in and of itself, you might be thinking, what is cool about this, and it's one less step that you now have to perform in Essential Graphics, is that this is responsive. So the background box is responsive to the text that lives there. So if I were to select this text, you'll see as I type, "This is new text," the background box automatically grows with the text. Similarly, if I were to do this vertically, same thing happens. So really lovely to have this. Again, it's those little things that just make you more efficient, make the process of working in here that much better. And it really, I just love this new feature in the Essential Graphics panel. Okay, small things, cool things, really awesome. So multiple strokes, stroke options, background bounding box, really super cool. Very glad to bring that to you. Okay. All right, so let's now, we're going to switch a little bit here, going back to efficiency and speed. All right, I'm going to switch my workspace as well here. So in Premiere Pro in particular, and it's only been out for a day, so looking forward to seeing your comments on Twitter, Periscope, Facebook, YouTube. Lots of things have been reworked to improve performance and stability. And probably one of those features where that is the most evident is in masking and tracking. And it's odd because I actually just did a stream on this maybe a week or so ago. The process is exactly the same, but now it's just faster, all right? So here in this particular shot, you can see that we've got Mike, our star and director here, wearing a branded shirt, which, you know, for his short film, he did not have license to use. So as is often the case, we might want to blur this out, mosaic it out, paint it out, whatever. Now, one of the things that we're going to talk about in After Effects, no surprise, we know Content Aware is there. You might want to take it out entirely and fill in that background, and I'll actually show you a method that you can use there to do just that. But if we simply want to do like a quick mask, track, and blur in Premiere, we can do that easily and truly faster than ever, okay? So let's go ahead. You can see I've got a Gaussian blur already added here. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ellipse tool, and let's just go ahead and create a mask. I'm just going to increase the size here on screen so I can just get a little bit more accurate on my selection. All right, something like this. Real easy. Okay, that's just fine. Maybe expand the mask ever so slightly. The camera's moving. He's not moving too much. Of course, you've got your feathering options as well. Now, in and of itself, this may be underwhelming when you see what happens, but it's overwhelming because you're going to see how incredibly fast it is. So if we go to the wrench menu, same options that you had before, but you will see that the preview of the mask tracking process is unchecked by default. That's because now when I take this clip and I simply say track forward, 1, 2, done. What? Note, keyframes generated. Blurriness, engaged. Let's feather it a little bit more. Let's zoom back to fit, wind it back, and it's tracked. So unbelievably fast. If you have the preview turned on, it's still faster than it was. That will obviously slow things down a bit. Do you need to see it tracking and moving? Maybe you do. You can always turn the preview on. For rasters above 4K, 5K, 6K, 8K, and I don't have the figure in front of me, but we are literally seeing, 4x, 5x, 6x speed improvements for processing of the mask and the track. It's really awesome. And again, if you do this kind of work in Premiere a lot, particularly in enterprise and broadcast, where you're just having to, blur, quickly mosaic, again, recolor correct. Oh, and this is one of the things I showed on stream last week. So here, again, just want to do a little sort of color correction to brighten up his face. His face was a bit in shadow, so I'm drawing a mask like this via the Lumetri effect. All right, so a little something like that. Just kind of get this into position a little bit better. Okay, his head's moving a little. Got quite a bit of mask feathering there. Bring that down ever so slightly. Okay, And I'm even going to increase the exposure, something like that. So again, just on this still frame, you can see his face is completely in shadow. This is what we want. Again, track mask forward. Okay, on here, I'm going to erase, get rid of that. That's fine. Let's go ahead and track this. Okay, and it's done. What? Yes. That quickly. Let me just shrink this up so I can get the mask out, off there. There we go. All right. Easy. Before, after. Before, after. Quick little, you know, I wouldn't say a secondary color, but again, like a secondary color, you don't have to use the HSL in Lumetri. We just used the mask and did a quick little mask on his face and brightened his face up in the shot. So fast. And again, you're really going to see improved performance if you're working on 4K media, 6K media, and beyond. Really, really excited to allow you to get your hands on this. Okay. All right. How's our time? Ooh, wow, 9:30. Okay. Time is flying. Much more to cover here. But two quick little things in Premiere. So render and replace has been given a slight little revamp here. And again, performance, efficiency. 4K is becoming the standard. Everybody wants to process everything with effects. I was just in a forum thread reading about people who are delivering stuff to clients, you know, flat. And so many people jumped on and said, no, every time we do that, the client doesn't get it. They're upset. This is, you know, you have to drop some kind of a LUT on there, blah, blah, blah. Even if they're in the editing room, they have trouble seeing things flat. So a lot of times, of course, yes, we're processing, we're stabilizing, we're adding effects and other things. And we just want to quickly do like, you know, preview files of those. Okay, well, you can still do that. But render and replace now gives you even more flexibility and it's faster than it was. So here on this particular clip, if you take a look, we've got some warp stabilizer and some Lumetri applied. So here it is without the warp stabilizer. All right, a little shaky. Here it is pre-Lumetri as well. So we've got two effects that have been processed on here now. Now, this is playing in full quality in real time on my system, but this is just one clip on a single track. So as we start really cutting all this together, yes, admittedly, things could potentially slow down. Now, yes, I can drop to half res. There's lots of things I can do, but what if I don't want to break that flow? Well, now when I right-click, control-click on this clip, go to Render and Replace, this dialog will probably look familiar to many of you if you've used our proxy workflow, where now, very quickly, very easily, choose a source, your format. If you've got a preset for it, you can choose that. Otherwise, it'll just match your source. We're using DNX in this case. Include handles, again, common stuff. But the key element here is include video effects. So let's go ahead and click OK on this. So what this will do, of course, is quickly render, transcode this media, and apply those effects. So now we are ensured that we're definitely going to get real time, particularly if we're even on a slower system, because all that stuff is now rendered, taken out of the GPU, taken off the CPU if it was a CPU-based effect. All right. And what you'll see over here on the left side is that the effects still show up, right? Super cool, except now they're rendered. Okay. Oh, awesome. So now you're cutting, you're doing your thing, and you realize, well, oh, you know, we kind of went with this sort of cool look. Is this cool? Yeah, I guess it's sort of blue-green. Maybe we want it to be warmer. So we need to actually make a change to Lumetri. Or maybe we want to take the warp stabilizer off. We want it to be a more shaky handheld style, less you know, gyro style. Okay, no problem. Control-click, right-click, restore unrendered. And there you go. And now you've got access again to those effects natively. Make your changes, re-render and replace if you so desire. Just awesome. All right. So again, efficiency. This is something I have used all the time. And again, preview files as well. You still have that workflow. It's still great. Again, the limitation there is, you know, you do a lot of this work and you just want to quickly go back. It makes it hard to quickly go back. This does not. Very easy. Almost instantaneous to go back to those native effects. And then again, if we so desire, we can re-render and replace. All right. Really, really cool having that functionality there. Okay, last thing I wanted to show you here. This is actually just a real small thing, but not a small thing. In fact, I saw a couple people talking about this, excuse me, on the Twitters yesterday morning. For ages, and I literally mean ages, people have been asking for the ability to easily copy, paste, and or move audio effects in the Premiere Mixer. No small task before. There really was there was no way to really do it efficiently anyway. Yes, there was kind of a roundabout way. You know, I've got a bunch of vocal tracks here. I've got a bunch of sound effects or dialogue or whatever, and I've set up some compression here, and I want to use that same compression for that same dialogue, or I want to use the same settings for this EQ on this additional track. Well, now it's as simple as taking the effect here. So you can see I've got some VO, and I want to apply the same multiband to this SFX track. I can simply click it and drag it to any of the available slots. Notice I'm showing you as I'm going to a different slot here. Let go. And it copies it right over. Simple, easy, done. Come over here. Let's say we've got this vocal enhancer. So actually I don't want this. This wasn't supposed to be on track 8. It's supposed to be on track 9. I want to move that effect, but I want to have to reset all the settings. This, again, one of the limitations before. Real pain if you had to match, even just doing them one after the other. Painful, right? Honest, it was painful. I would go to Audition because it was easier there. This is even better than Audition has it, frankly. I can take this. I want to move it now. I'm not going to copy it. So I'm going to hold Command, Control, drag it over, and it moves it over. All right? So Command, Control to move it, click and drag to copy it. You don't have to do anything else. Real simple, real easy. The settings carry over. I love this. This is such a small little efficiency maker. But, you know, particularly as you're finalizing your mix, you're getting things set. Now, of course, if you're using something like Essential Sound, we make it easier for you, and you don't really have to worry about track-based effects necessarily, because that's all clip-based. But as you can see here, we've got sort of grouped tracks, bust tracks, and we want some similar sounds, similar compression, similar brick wall limiting happening there. And now it's easier than ever just to click and drag and move those things around. All right. So render and replace enhancements, audio mixer enhancements, the new freeform view, enhancements to essential graphics, guides, shareable, customizable guides, lots more stuff in Premiere Pro, but we must move on to After Effects. So, After Effects. If you were on social media at all yesterday, or maybe 6-7 months ago, you may recall that I had the pleasure at Max last year to premiere Content Aware Fill for video. If you are unaware of what Content Aware is, if you've ever worked in Photoshop, you know Content Aware, of course, and it's simply the ability to, in stills, take something like, you know, it could be anything like a blemish or maybe someone standing in the background, select them, delete them, and then with the Content Aware Fill algorithm, it fills in those pixels by analyzing all the pixels and things around it. Brilliant. Well, we have now brought that same functionality that you have in Photoshop to moving images in After Effects, and it is available today. And like many things that we produce, that our engineers create, it's some crazy Adobe magic. That's all I can tell you. So here is a shot that has already been cleaned. We've already removed something, but I wanted to show you this first because I am going to do this for you live. Now, what's really cool about Content Aware is that it's really very simple to set the scenario up. So here's the fill. Let me take the fill off. So this is what we filled in, was this car right over there, okay? Now, there's 3 basic methods in Content Aware: object, surface, and edge blend. And there's sort of an additional factor that you can use, something called a reference frame, if the algorithm is having trouble filling in the background because maybe the image never moved, so you can actually paint things out. I'm going to show you that in a moment. But first, at its most basic level, let's get rid of that car. So the first thing you do is you create a mask. So I've already got the mask created down here. Let me go ahead and turn this on, subtract. Now again, I've got my transparency grid. You can, if you prefer to have it like this, entirely up to you. I saw some of the marketing content that we had was using it like this. I like it in black. Effectively, when you create that mask, you're creating a hole. You need to tell After Effects what it is that you're trying to fill by punching it out. And you can use any of the available masking tools in After Effects. So I just did this with the pen tool. You can use the ellipse, you can use the rectangle, you can use the roto brush. Whatever it is that you like to mask with, that can be used for Content Aware. And Content Aware exists, you can find it under the window menu, and it will appear in the default workspace alongside many of your other panels and tools. So effects and presets, align, libraries, here is Content Aware. And again, really simple, easy implementation here. So you've got your fill target, you can see what that is. Now, the step after masking, of course, is you need to track it across the footage. So that's exactly what we did. Now you can use After Effects' tracker. Here, that was actually what we used, and then we modified some of those keyframes manually. But this just shows you that we've got now this moving mask, this little blob, and that's the area that we want to remove. Okay, awesome. So again, we've got 3 different fill methods. In this case, we're going to focus on object removal, okay? So this mode really kind of looks at frames before and after to find pixels it can use to fill everything in. And because that road is moving, it can see ahead. So it kind of knows what needs to be there. Super cool. We don't need to get into the details of it. Let's just go ahead and run it. Go ahead and generate fill layer. And it begins doing its thing. You can see we are analyzing down here. While that's analyzing, I'm going to take a quick sip. It's also worth pointing out that compared to what I showed in October, which is really the first version of Content Aware inside the app. Previously, it was a sneak known as Project Cloak. The processing time now is significantly faster than it was then. So super cool. Again, that will, of course, vary depending upon your frame size, length of your clip, etc. But this is a great way to, again, very quickly and very efficiently remove things. Now you can see we have a new fill, a new layer, and incidentally, your fills will be created as a ping sequence inside of After Effects. Play it back. Car gone. Turn off that new fill that we just created. There's our mask. Carless. I believe I said on the max stage, horse free. All right, car free. What the what? Okay, pretty simple though, right? Now, it's also worth pointing out, as I said at max, you know, people are already doing this, right? They're actually probably doing it in Photoshop frame by frame, right? People have been doing this for ages. This is not, the concept of doing it isn't new, but having this functionality directly in After Effects is super cool. So let's look at a couple of additional examples. I'm going to show you a couple examples with object, surface, and edge blend, as well as reference frame. So here's another one. Now, again, in this particular example here, I'll just play it. First of all, here's the filled version, okay? So we've got our lovely couple. This is from some of our content last year, the scene between walking along the beach. They are being followed by multiple camera people. But if I turn the fill layer off, oh, there he is. There's the dude. So you can see one of the camera operators got into this particular shot. Now, yes, we could have recropped, reframed. There's other ways that we could have made this work, but why not just mask him out and use Content Aware, which is exactly what we did. So again, create the mask, track the mask. Again, we did this one manually, just kind of moving it in. It really occupies a very large section of that left side. Okay, you can see here very easily what we're looking to do. Object, alpha expansion, we'll get into that in just a minute, but you can imagine what the alpha expansion is, just as it says, expanding the alpha mask here. Let's go ahead and generate fill layer, let it do its thing. Sip of water once again. Analysis, moving quickly. All right, and hopefully this should get rid of our camera operator in due time. All right. I recommend if you're trying this for the first time, do it on a very small section. If you're new to After Effects and new to masking, there we go. New fill layer, again, generated up at the top here. Wind it back. Beautiful. Okay. Lovely. All right. Oh, and it looks like I got a little bit of a seam. I'm not going to lie, I got a little bit of a seam going on here. But here's the thing. I could now take this and I could make a selection around this weird seam right there, and I could fill that. Yes, you can do multiple fills on the content. In fact, this is exactly what I did at Max last year. It's not always going to catch everything the first time around. So super cool, super effective. let's move on. More cool examples to show you. So in this particular example, this is one where we actually wound up leveraging the roto brush. So they did a really amazing roto mask on this. If I turn that off for a moment, you can see what we're trying to remove. So here we have this woman standing on the rocks, and they wanted to take her out to have this sort of clean backing plate, all right? Now here's where, because she's moving a lot, and what happened is when we tried to just fill this, so her dress is kind of blowing, there's movement, and we never got a good look of what was behind her. It didn't do a great job filling it. It actually pulled some elements from her, and it did something weird with the rocks going up. Those like the rocks in the foreground seemed to be in the background. So it was just having some trouble. So to alleviate that trouble, one thing you can do is use a reference frame. The reference frame typically should be a view of your character where they are sort of occupying the most amount of screen real estate, okay? So, and by the way, I'm going to set the alpha expansion here. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger to around 15 to account for some of the movement there because I want to make sure that when I send this over to Photoshop with my reference frame that we kind of get everything. So here, I'm parked right on the first frame. I think this one's going to be okay. Let's go ahead and send this frame over to Photoshop. So I'm going to do just that by clicking on this button down here called Create Reference Frame. And I keep hitting that, sorry. Very tight this morning. Okay, Create Reference Frame. Here we go. It's going to take that exact frame from After Effects and send us into Photoshop. Now, how do we want to repair this? Well, curiously, having tried this a few times, let's just do a couple of content-aware fills on this right here. Okay, so Shift F5. Okay, something like that. All right, and come over here. I kind of did this in 3 sections. Seems to work okay. Shift F5. Let's fill that in. By the way, you can use whatever method you want here. This is just me trying to do this somewhat quickly and accurately. All right, like that. Okay, that looks okay, but now there's some weirdness in the rock. So let me go ahead and take the clone stamp tool, and maybe we'll just paint back in some of the rocks over here where it got a little smeary. All right, just trying to look a little more natural there. And again, we've already got some depth of field, so this actually looks really good. And now, again, the mountain behind looks okay, looks as it should. Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and save this. All right, let's close it. Go back to After Effects, where now what you will see in the bottom layer enabled, we now have that reference frame. Okay, these were the 2 that were in there before, disabled. So here is the reference frame that we just painted from Photoshop, now back in After Effects. And After Effects is now going to use this as the basis for filling in where that girl was. Okay, so again, we're still using the object method. Let's go ahead and generate the fill layer. Now the analysis for this one may take a little bit longer. I will show you an example in a couple of minutes of multiple reference frames. We had a very challenging shot, a castle shot that had just lots of people. It looked very touristy, right? We used to actually call content aware at one point as sort of the tourist remover. If you remember when it was first introduced in Photoshop, we had a bunch of examples of removing tourists from, like, you know, beautiful landscape photography. You can have multiple reference frames in multiple positions in your timeline, and it will use those to fill in any of the masked areas. So I'll show you that in just a second. Okay, so we're almost done with our analysis. It's doing its thing. Here we go. Content aware fill, available in After Effects. It was a dream 18 months ago. 6 months ago, it became more of a reality on stage, but not yet in your hands. And now today, you have the ability to work with content aware fill in After Effects. Super, super awesome. Okay, it's doing its turn to this first frame. Again, it's taking a little bit of a moment here for this reference frame. We're going to let it do its thing. Here we go. Filling in everything else. Give it a moment. Give it a moment. All right, take another sip here. I'm going to look over in the chat and see how things are going while that is doing its thing. Now, I could have just showed, I mean, I already kind of showed you the after, but I want you to see this processing so that you get a good idea of how this works. And we're talking with 84 frames here. So something to consider if you're like, oh, well, it's taken a while. Well, how long would it take you to effectively paint that out over 84 frames? Faster than what we're doing here. Play. Oh. What? What? Bleh. All right. Now, someone else asked me after Max last year, does the type of mask that you use ensure a better fill? Well, yes, it theoretically can, but as you've also seen, very rough masks, you know, it really depends on what's in the background, what it's trying to fill. It doesn't have to be a roto mask, in other words. Now, for something like that, where there was just a lot of movement and a lot of small, subtle things moving because wind was blowing the dress and her hair, it made sense to roto that. It would have been too hard to track, you know, an ellipse or sort of a free-form pen tool mask, because then you might be grabbing areas that aren't a problem, right? Which just makes the algorithm have to work that much harder to fill it in properly. So it can change. It can vary, you know, YMMV. But in general, as you're going to see here again, it doesn't take much to get a really good fill. So again, here's sort of the cleaned up final shot. This is also from a scene between. We've got our couple here. This is from that same shot where the guy walked into the frame, walking along towards the beach here. But in fact, there were two big shadows that were not moving on screen. Now the camera's moving in. We've got a drone shot here. But if I turn off the masks, you can see that there were these static shadows that, you know, the director, he just didn't like it. I mean, you've already got the moving shadow of the couple here. It looks wrong. It looks out of place. So again, this is where we're now going to use the surface mode to replace those. So the key here is that this is really the best method if the object doesn't move within the scene. Again, the camera's moving, but the object isn't moving, and it never reveals what's behind or underneath. So obviously, it doesn't really know what the grass should look like in these sections. All right, you can use the object method. The surface method, for this particular example, worked a little bit better. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the top one for right now. Let's add that in here. Something else to keep in mind, and this has to do with alpha expansion. So we just had our alpha expansion at 15 with the moving dress with the roto. In this particular one, and this I experienced myself, with the expansion set a little bit higher, it started to pull some of the fill. Because the mask at that first frame is very close to the surfboard here, it actually pulled some fill of the surfboard. So I didn't want that. That's not what we want at all, right? So for this, I'm going to set the alpha expansion to 0. I don't want to expand it at all, right? I made the mask big enough to account for that sort of free-form shadow. So alpha expansion at 0, surface method, generate fill layer. Here we go. Analyzing. Moving. Grooving. All right, here we go. Someone asked on Twitter yesterday, can you use this on 360 content? Yes, you can use this on 360 VR content. And I believe, if not internally, they might be coming via Metal. I think someone's already worked up a tutorial for that. So, what? Again, turn the fill off. There's our hole. There's our fill. What? Are you crazy? Let's go in 100%. I'm just curious. I might be shooting myself in the foot here. I don't see any seams. What? What? All right. Does it always perform this way? Does anything? You just have to try it, right? Like content aware in Photoshop on stills, it will amaze you. And then at other times, you may work a little harder to get it there. The key is that for most things, if you're trying to remove stuff, small things, whatnot, it can do this really effectively, really easily, and often very, very quickly. Now, this example is going to use the edge blend method. And this, show you right there, edge blend. This is really where it's going to read the pixels at the edge of your mask and then blur them into the mask area. Perfect and ideal for things like removing, in this case, a decal, or, you know, as you see often in, you know, like TV shows where they're using a MacBook Pro or something, or an HP, and they have to cover up the HP. This can be really ideal for that. So here you can see we've already done the edge blend. This one wasn't too great. There's also some challenging light. You've got, you know, some sort of sun, got lens flare happening there. But here it is with the decal. All right, so in the same way, let's just do it live again. We did a little mask around the decal, and we tracked it. And you can see why edge blend is necessary here, because it's just flat color, right? And it needs to kind of morph and change over time. This is, again, pretty challenging shot here. Now, for this particular one, I'm going to use a little bit of alpha expansion because of that change, because of that light change. When I had it too tight, I started to see an outline. When it was too wide, it started to blend some of the decal into the color, right? So again, this kind of takes a little getting used to. You'll see how it'll work in different scenarios. Once again, let's go ahead. I've got it on. Edge blend, generate fill layer, analyze, boom, render, fast. Here we go. Wow, almost at the hour here. Okay, I've got about 15 more minutes of stuff to show you. And we're done. What? And that one, actually, even better than the previous one. I could probably even set that alpha expansion to 3, and I think that would do it. But really, it's looking pretty darn good. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. And again, if we zoom in right here, I don't see any edges. That's some shadow. That's just pixelization because I'm zoomed in, but clean, right? Really cool. All right, the last two things I'm just going to show you here, I'm not going to process them, is again sort of to give you an idea of just how much you can really do with this. And this shot, to me, this really sells this feature because, again, as part of Mike Burton's short film Century, he had a lot of these shots where he's cycling and needed just uninterrupted road. Well, you know, you can get that in California, but not always so easily. So if we kind of start turning off all the things that were filled in, this is gonna shock you. So first of all, there was a car there, and then there was another car. So there were 2 cars, and then there's like a signpost and a stop sign and a manhole cover, and there's another car driving up here. So look at how busy this shot is. Okay, just take a look at all the elements that are in here. So you've got 3 cars. You've got whatever this is here. You've got the cone, sign, stop sign, all this stuff. And all of these things as masks, okay? So you can see all the individual masks down here for the manhole, the sign, the front car. And again, start taking these things out one by one. Car gone. Let's get rid of all this junk along the side of the road. Gone. Let's get rid of that car up at the top there. And a little road fix, and this is what we've got, okay? And if you take a look here, I mean, there's a lot of masking, but the masks themselves were pretty clean and straightforward, and most of that was done with the classic tracker in here. A couple manual tweaks, as you often have to do, but really, really very cool. All right, the last thing I'm going to show you with regard to content aware, because I think you get the idea now, but I think it's worth pointing out lots of different scenarios here, is this particular shot. So obviously this looks kind of nice and clean. I'll show you one more method of this in a second here, or one more final version of this in a second, but this shot did not start out that way. And in fact, if we turn off the fill, so first and foremost, we had to fill this window up there, but then here's all the masks that had to be created for this particular shot. Because if I go ahead and subtract these, turn off. What am I saying? Let me remove the masks. There we go. You can see all these things going on in the shot. So we're trying to, do this edit, a period piece here. And obviously, we're in modern times. You've got tourists, you got people walking all over the place. Hard to get. I often think back to when I first visited the pyramids at Giza with Terry White and got very fortunate that in filming some content of the Great Pyramid, in the 2.5 minutes that I was there filming, There was no one there. Nobody. It was creepy. You could feel the creepiness of no one being there because you've got this massive structure. Got very lucky. It's now a shot that I've actually sold on Adobe Stock. Monetize your B-roll, friends. But this is kind of a mess, right? So this was a challenge to our content creators here to get rid of all of these things. So again, they created masks for all this stuff. But aside from all of the masks that they had to create, because, you know, these cannons that you see and the flagpole and some of these other elements, and there's some parallax going on here with how the camera's moving, After Effects didn't know what was behind those things. So what you can see down here below, labeled as individual reference frame fills, these are all of the individual reference frames that were made. We had to paint back in the trees and the road and everything else to really sell this shot. And then, of course, the final stage was to color grade it a la sort of Game of Thrones. So again, this is just a kind of really brief, simple example, but I think it showcases it pretty well of just how far you can take this if you're willing to, you know, go that extra mile. And again, you have to ask yourself, how long would this have taken you to do it manually? Now, there's some times, and this one isn't perfect. There's some weird, a couple little weird things going on in the corner there, you know, but for the most part, wow, just wow. You know, something that if I had to do this yesterday manually in Photoshop, I wouldn't do it. Me personally. There are many that do. That's their gig. Not me. It was just impossible. Here, though, this makes it possible and easy and really, really useful. Okay, so Content Aware Fill for video, available right now in After Effects. Reference frames, 3 different methods, edge blends, surface, and object mode. So cool. So awesome. You just got to check it out. And there's already lots of tutorials. In fact, I believe our very own, one of our very well-known influencers, Premier Gal, created a really awesome tutorial already for how to work with Content Aware Fill. So you want to check that out on YouTube. Okay, last thing here in After Effects, last but not least. Now, you may recall that in the previous version, we had made some changes to our expressions engine. In fact, we added a new JavaScript-based expressions engine. We added monotype for the font style. We've up-leveled it yet again in this latest release by actually giving you, we've expanded the editor field in the timeline panel now, and you actually have a full actual code editor right here. So if I were to go ahead here and let me expand this and go full screen on this for a second. I'm going to show you some of these options. I want to show you primarily, if you're writing expressions, how awesome this is in terms of finding errors. And this is something we talked about. This was improved upon in the last version, but we've taken it even a step further here. Again, true full code editor interface, highlighting JavaScript syntax and more. So here we've got this comp layer is referencing mile. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to kilometer. Kilometer. I don't know why that came out kilometer. I was going to say kilo and then anyway, okay. Click away from that. And when we look back into our composition panel, you can see that it tells us that there's an error. Yes, of course. All right. And if we go down here into the actual data, again, if I click on the little error message here, this will tell us exactly what we need. So unlike the previous expression editor, this actually tells us, okay, yes, it's at error at line 1 in property position of layer 5 box in this comp. And what's the error? Well, the layer named kilometer is missing or does not exist. Okay. So right away, you get that nice little pop-up box. But again, what if you're kind of new to expressions, or what if you're used to kind of working in actual code editors? Well, again, taking it a step further now, let's go back and make this full screen, click inside of here. Now, inside the expressions editor, it actually highlights for you via an arrow exactly where that error is. So much easier, right? So if I come back in here, let's type in mile, and you'll see it's going to give us suggestions of other layers that we can use here, referencing that. Okay, we're going to use that one. That's it. Click away. The error goes away, brings us back to how this is supposed to look, that little position rectangle right there. Good to go. But there's even more that you can do with this and more customizable options. If we go up to Preferences, Scripting, and Expressions, here now is where you can set and color code all of the various elements of the expressions editor. I'm not going to talk through all of these things, kind of just make this full screen so you can see it. Oh, sorry, move over a little bit there. This is just awesome for anyone writing and working with expressions. I'm an expression noob. I know the same 6 or 7 expressions for the last 15 years. I rely on others to write them. If you write them, this is now a delightful, you can even see line numbering. I mean, everything. It's just, even this now makes more sense to me. That's the funny thing, is that previously, the way that it used to be never made sense. Sort of just loose code against a white backdrop in Courier font scared me. This actually makes sense, right? And of course, if you like the old school, click on the little rocket icon here. Keep in mind that if you have a desire to go back to the classic legacy expression engine, it's still in there. But of course, by default now, we default to the JavaScript engine. So, new expressions editor, better error reporting, content-aware fill. There's lots more little fixes and little things that you're going to find in After Effects. You'll be able to see all of what's in there when Carl Soleil hits the stage at NAB next week. And of course, we have lots of videos on adobe.com and elsewhere showcasing more in the applications here. But this app is just going to feel more robust, slicker, better, faster, and just totally awesome. Okay, we got 10 more minutes. I'm already a little over time. 2 quick things on Audition, 2 quick things in Character Animator, and then I'm going to send you on your way. Thank you so much for watching. Again, you'll be able to watch these replays on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter Periscope at your leisure to truly see all of what's coming, all of what's available right now in the latest updates to the Creative Cloud video and audio apps. So the first thing I'm going to show you here is something called Punch and Roll. This is something which most people who've worked in sound editing, sound design, sound production are familiar with, which is effectively, particularly for voiceover and dialogue replacement, it's the ability to, as you're laying down a take, punch in. And for those of you unfamiliar with the concept of punch in, it's really easy to understand if you're thinking about, again, replacing dialogue or singing. You know, you're doing dialogue replacement, or you're singing a line, and you sing it and you don't like the way it sounds, so you want to redo it. Well, traditionally, again, if you're using tape-based or digital tape-based or even nonlinear, you could wind back, play back so that you can hear what you sang before, and then they would literally, in the older days, I almost said olden, play and record to punch in, and the record head would hit the tape and you would just drop in that fix wherever you needed it. Now, the punch part of that is only one element. The enroll part is that after that, now sometimes you just punch in a single word or 2 words, whatever, but a lot of times, particularly for dialogue, you might want to say, all right, take it from where I said he loves cookies. You punch and then you just keep rolling and you keep redoing the dialogue. So that's the essence of punch and roll. We now offer punch and roll in our multi-track here. We've even got some visual cues, a couple different options that you can set inside of preferences. Super easy, really, really a welcomed addition. And for this, I got to put on some headphones so I can hear what I'm doing. So hold on, let me just mute my sound playing back here. Make sure I've got some signal. Okay, so I'm going to start playing this back for you, and I'm just going to narrate, and then I'm just going to start talking, and then I'm going to make a mistake, which we're then going to repair. Now, how you enable punch and roll, there's a new, you have some options here on the record button in Audition. So if you right-click, control-click, you'll see that we now have this punch and roll mode. Let's go ahead and enter punch and roll. Let's go ahead and start, and I'll start doing some dialogue. Here we go. When you're young, you don't think about goals. Just being around in the morning, that's a goal. Going to school, that's a goal. Finishing your Okay, so I wanted to say finishing your breakfast, okay? This is ridiculous. Okay, but you get the idea. So here's how we do it. I'm going to wind back. Now I can play back and hear what I just did. Going to school, that's a goal. Finishing your Okay. Now the key to punch and roll is that because I'm able to drop in and it's going to give me some pre-roll, allowing me to hear what I did before, it's going to allow me to match the tonality, the cadence, the feeling of the performance uninterrupted. And just to show you, if we go up into Preferences under Video, oh, actually, wait a minute. No. It's playback and recording. Thank you. Under recording here, here's where you have your punch and roll options. So you can display a pre-roll countdown timer in the video panel, as well as how much pre-roll in terms of seconds you want. So I've given myself 5, okay? So now, what did I want to say? Finishing your Okay, so it's going to be finishing your breakfast is a goal. That's what I'm trying to say. And then I'll keep moving and show you some other cool things. Here we go. It's going to give me a count of 5, a little flash, and we'll kick right in. Around in the morning, that's a goal. Going to school, that's a goal. Finishing your breakfast, that's a goal. That's the thing. When you're a kid, just being around, that's the best part. What? Okay. Again, let's fix that. Okay. Same thing. Now we're going to come back here. That's the thing. When you're a kid, just being around, that's all you need to do. Your goal is just being you every day. Now, what if I wanted to redo that take multiple times? Well, we have a keyboard shortcut that allows you to punch again to ensure that you go to the exact same position. So if we go up to keyboard shortcuts under the edit menu, and I'm going to type in punch again. This is not pre-assigned, but I found that, let me see, what was it? I think it was, what did I use? Shift Option P is available. Yes. So I'm going to click into the shortcut field, Shift Option P, add that shortcut, click OK. So now when I hit Shift Option P, that's the thing. When you're a kid, just being around is exactly where you need to be, exactly what you want to do, and exactly allows me to punch in exactly where I left off. And again, if I hit that same keyboard shortcut, I can punch that section multiple times. I have the ability to choose the different takes. And then, as is the case with punch, you typically want to merge all of these takes together. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to right click here, merge clips, and now you have one comped performance ready to go, right? Super cool, super effective. Tell you what, friends, I got to pause for the cause for a second. That's what happens with live streams. BRB in 1 second. Well, that's reality for you. That hasn't happened since the Twitch days. Okay, so punch and roll, you get the idea. That's how that goes. Okay, so one other thing I want to show you here in Audition. We now have ambience ducking. So what is ambience ducking? Well, this is what you already know in terms of ducking for music that we added into the Essential Sound panel. If we come up to Essential Video Mixing, we have now added ducking to perform with ambience and sound effects tracks. And the reason we added this for ambience and sound effects is that we found that a lot of our customers were tagging ambience and sound effects as music, right? So the essence of Essential Sound, if you are unfamiliar, is that you tag your clips as a specific audio type: dialogue, music, ambience, sound effects. And when you do that, you have a series of different effects and filters that apply to those. Well, ducking was only available as one of the filters in the music tag. Well, now we've brought it to ambience as well. And the reason for that is that a lot of times when you're doing sound design, yes, you want to duck music when someone's talking, but if they're in an environment, they're outside, or you're whatever the B-roll on screen is, if it's voiceover, you still want to be able to hear, you know, in this case, someone cycling or birds chirping or whatever it is. You might want to duck it a little, but you don't want to take it out entirely. And again, like music, you definitely want to do this multiple times throughout a performance. So ambient ducking uses the same Adobe Sensei technology to automatically analyze not only the thresholds, but where your dialogue is, and it will automatically create, if you take a look here, the envelopes or the volume keyframes to drop that ambience. So once again, let me go ahead and play this back for you and kind of give you an idea of what this sounds like. Right now, we're only ducking it around 3 dB or so.
All you need is a little bit of courage.
Here it comes again. Listen to the sound design go down.
But in the heat of the battle, your bravery can run and hide.
And that was kind of nice the way it ramped back up. Maybe we want to duck it even a little bit more. So let's go to around 6 dB, and maybe we'll make the fade a little bit longer. Now, what I want to show you here is that as I make adjustments to the duck amount, if you're paying attention to the waveform view, you can see that this is dynamically adjusting. Okay, so what I love about this is that it's very visual. Similarly, if we adjust the fade time, that's how quickly it fades down and then fades back up after the duck. Take a look at the edges of the curves and you'll see how they change, they expand. So let's make the fade a little bit longer. We're dropping it by another 2.5 dB or so. Let's take a listen to this little part right here.
Can run and hide. The fear creeps in. And sometimes it all feels a little bit too much.
Like, that was such a nice fade right there. It felt so good. We love this, okay? Now, of course, you have the option, the ability to manually adjust. Maybe this works for everything because it auto-detects, but there's one section where you want it to not drop 6 dB, just one little spot. Well, if you uncheck monitor clip changes, I like to call this is sort of the sensei button. If you uncheck this, now you have individual editable keyframes with your decibel values on screen. It is no longer leveraging sensei. It's already done the analysis, so it's all still there, right? But now it's not using sensei, okay? So you can modify this. Now, if you decide after you make a bunch of manual changes, oh, I liked it the way it was before, when you click monitor clip changes, it goes back into sensei mode and you can see it reconfigured that curve the way it was based on the settings that we have here. So this is such a welcomed addition. Of course, this is also available in Premiere as well. So in the Essential Sound panel in Premiere, you now also have ambience ducking there too. So ambience ducking, music ducking, really, really awesome. Really glad to be able to bring that to you. Okay, so the last thing that I'm going to show you here, and in fact, just so that there aren't two versions of me, let me just get rid of my image down below because that'll just be confusing. Just a couple of quick things in Character Animator. First is that you will notice, and this is something that we've been doing over the last couple of releases, more puppets, more ways to get started, to explore and to understand how these things are created. It's also worth pointing out, this is something that, again, we'll be showing at NAB on stage. You'll be able to watch those live streams. Characterizer, so how to turn yourself into an animated puppet and then characterize yourself against a reference image, right? So in this case, sort of a painted image of our pal Dave here. He was able to create that in a matter of moments. New characters, new puppets, so much cool stuff. But primarily, though, one of the really cool things is this modified tagging panel. So they've done a lot of work to make the process of tagging your characters easier and easier in Character Animator. Effectively, right, for those of you unfamiliar, these are all Photoshop or Illustrator files. And really, it's taking your Photoshop artwork, your Illustrator artwork, and bringing it to life, okay? And of course, you separate out things like eyes and hair and arms and elbows and everything else. And in the original version of CA, you had to know naming conventions to set all of that up. And of course, that was a little tricky. And then we created this tagging panel, which was a bit more visual, but still it was a lot of kind of going back and forth and got a little confusing from time to time. But now it's super visual, super easy, and one of the new things that we've added here is the ability to apply a layer or handle tag right on the actual layer itself. If you look at the puppet panel here, this is in fact the layers panel that you would have in Photoshop. If we were to edit original on this, this is exactly what you'd see in Photoshop. So if I click on the plus button here, now from this, I can tell Character Animator, I can tag exactly what this is. And you can see we've already tagged this as the left eyebrow. What's also really cool about this is in the way that they've kind of reflowed this tagging panel is that they've separated out a lot of these elements. Before, it was a little difficult if you were dealing with like the blink state or, you know, the eyelids. It was just harder to set those individual pieces now, or the pupil. We've made it so much easier now. Again, all of your mouth shapes to do all of your visemes, all right here. So cool, so easy. Your turns, half turn, 3/4 turn. This stuff is so great. And of course, adding physics and modifiers and all of those other things. So this enhanced tagging panel just makes it that much easier. Also, additionally, and this is something that Dave Werner brought up, and this, I know this actually happened to me, is that as you're authoring your characters, and when you think about how it's going to work, particularly if you're going to be recording or maybe even live streaming with them, is a lot of times people will reverse left and right. Like they're thinking, okay, that's the left on my left side, but in fact, it's the right side. Oh, here, while you can see me for this. So you have the ability now to very easily and quickly, let me see if I can get that on screen. Yep. Swap left and right tags, right? So you can see up there, it says left eyebrow, swap left and right. Now it says right eyebrow. Okay. Real easily. Super cool. All right. Now, the last thing I wanted to show you here, just with regard to Character Animator, is something. Now, I mentioned streaming, and of course, we have that streaming capability. If we go up into preferences here, you'll see, of course, that I have this NewTek NDI output plugin, which you can get for free, which will enable you to go into the stream method. And I was even thinking of maybe doing the performance today as a character in Character Animator. But what is also new is you now have Twitch integration. And if you look at the checkbox here, you can see remote triggering by a Twitch extension. Yes, so if you game on Twitch, if you work on Twitch, and you've got, you have when people sub, and there's all these actions that can happen. A lot of times people will have like GIFs or graphics play, whatever. Well, those actions, subs, whatnot, can also now remotely trigger elements inside of Character Animator Live, which is so, so cool, which really, again, turns this into a performance-based system, which is really amazing. So there's also some new ARM IK in here, which again, you'll be able to see already on some of the additional Adobe channels, and Dave is going to go into greater depth of that live from NAB starting on Monday. This application is really just rocking, and it's easier than ever to bring your 2D character art to life. I can't emphasize enough. Where's this other new one? Was it Bandit? This one? Yeah, hold on. Let me bring up this scene. So many new and cool and fun characters. I really love working with these guys. It's just fun, right? You've got some triggers here, stretch, squash. I mean, the physics involved is so good. The lip sync is so good. The ability now to just right click and change visemes. This was added in the last version, but so useful, so helpful. Again, right inside the audio panel here. If it's not meant to be an you can change what mouth shape it was supposed to be if it didn't do it quite right. They've just really up-leveled the whole game here for Character Animator, for character presentation through this application. All right, my friends, so much stuff was covered today. We're going to bounce over to the chat real briefly. Thank you so much for spending time with me. Hope you've enjoyed the presentation. If you're going to be at NAB, please be sure to stop by our booth. All right, South Hall. I don't remember the booth number off the top of my head, although I imagine there are people in the chat who will tell you all of that information. And I'm just briefly looking over here to see if there are any questions that need to be answered. All right. Augustin Garcia. Okay, yes, you can watch this at any time. Kriakos, yes. All right. Okay, just looking. Questions. Linking graphics updates are awesome. Awesome. Jay Malmsteen, getting a feeling that David Fincher was a big influencer for AE content aware Phil. Maybe. Yep. All right. Content about Ambience. Okay. I see a lot of the bladder expander plugin. Yep, we need that one. All right. Oh, yes, and Eric Tao asks, yes, so we now support dual GPUs in Premiere Pro. Now, my colleague Dave Helmley, you can find him on Twitter. I believe it's Dave Tech Table, D-A-V Tech, T-E-C-H, Table, T-A-B-L-E. Just did a very brief 5-minute video on our new dual GPU support. I highly recommend on YouTube. You can also just search his name, David K. Helmley, H-E-L-M-L-Y, but Dave Tech Table. If you search on Premiere Pro dual GPU April NAB release, you'll find the video. Yes, it is something now that we support in this new release. It's awesome. He also talks about some of the recommended hardware for that. Really, really, really worthy, really cool. All right. Dax Castro, you're very nice. All right. Hi, Matt, you're very welcome. Michael James, all right. Yes, see y'all at NAB. Nice. Brendan, wish you had more time to use content aware. All right. Roberto, thank you very much. All right. Is there an autocorrect feature for text? I don't know what you're referring to. If you mean like an actual autocorrect, as in like if in Essential Graphics, unfortunately no, or maybe fortunately no. I don't know. I will not be at After Effects World. See, someone was asking that. And yes, Wayne, we will be streaming from NAB on the Premiere Facebook page and the After Effects Facebook page. And there'll be a combination of my presentations, Carl Soule, Dave Werner, and then many of our customers as well. So you'll be able to find those specifically on the Premiere Pro Facebook pages and the After Effects Facebook pages. Anissa Thompson, how are you? Great to see you. All right. Rodrigo from Argentina. Okay. Super. Great. Okay. Okay, just going through. All right, looks like we got it all. Okay, so until next time, thank you so much for joining me on the stream today. It's been great having you all, such a large and international audience. Again, you'll be able to watch the replays on Facebook, on Twitter Periscope, on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching me wherever you are in the world. We'll catch you live from the NAB stage in a matter of days, so have a great weekend. And until then, take care. See you next time. Bye-bye.